Alright guys, this is Upinya Slayin here, and I decided that I was going to go ahead and weigh in a little bit on the console wars. Now, instead of being that person who sits there in front of the camera complaining and whining, I'll just play some video gameplay in the background to kind of keep you amused while I kind of give my side on things. Now, everyone's seen all the memes, we've all heard the speeches, we've heard the people complaining, we hear all the fanboy craziness that goes on. So that's not what this is going to be about. This is going to be about actually taking a step back and looking at the new technology that we have coming out and kind of comparing the two. Now, I know a lot of people will call me a Microsoft fanboy, so we'll get that out of the way. Obviously, you see the videos, I play on Xbox, it's the system I prefer, but it's not about being a fanboy, it's just about picking what works best for you. And in this case, that's what worked best for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of, we'll get to the actual new consoles in a little bit, but just kind of like a history of gaming. When you look at everything that's moved on, I mean, I'm almost 30 years old, I've been playing video games for as long as I can remember. The first system I remember having was a Coleco, and I've owned since then a Nintendo, a Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, a PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, an Xbox 360. So I've owned pretty much every system out there. I have a Wii, pretty much every system for the most part, with the exception of a couple. So I kind of take a step back and I look at how games progressed. And in the past, games have always kind of just moved up one step. I mean, when you look at it from the Nintendo to the Super Nintendo, they basically just kind of move up a little bit in graphics, a little bit in hardware, but nothing gets huge bumps of technology. It was always just a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit there. Kind of similar to what Apple does with their products, with the iPhone and everything. Every once in a while they'll have a huge jump, but for the most part they put out the same product with a new feature or two. So when I look at the history of gaming, I also look at what each company has provided. Nintendo has always been about the software. They've always been about first party games that are fun for everybody, that are family games, the Marios, the Donkey Kongs, the Zeldas, classic games, definitely classic games, but that's kind of what they've always been about. They've been about more about the family, bringing them together, making everything accessible, making it easy. It's always been more sort of a kid system, which obviously I grew up playing Nintendo, it has a lot of nostalgia to it. I definitely enjoy what Nintendo does, but that's because I grew up playing it. As an adult now, if I had never played games before and I was going to decide on getting something, I would not look at a Nintendo. It looks like a kid system to me, because that's kind of what it is. But anyone who's around my age group kind of understands that. Basically, that's how games started. Nintendo was one of the pioneers for bringing games to everybody. So Sony came in, and their whole idea was about hardware, because Sony is a hardware company. When you break it down, that's what they are. They make TVs, they make VCRs, they make electronics. They're always improving hardware. They invented the Blu-ray, which has had great success. I mean, it's an excellent product, but in the same sense, they've also invented the mini disc, and that kind of failed hard. So that's kind of what happens when you come out with new technology. It either fails or it becomes big. So when I look at Microsoft is a software company. That's what they've always been about: software, technology, and pushing new technology and new ways to do things. I deal a lot with a lot of technology stuff. I deal with servers. I deal with a lot of the crap that Microsoft has to offer in the process of setting these up. So I know how much of a pain in the butt it can be and how bad their support can be. So I take a look at it, and that's kind of how games have progressed through on. So before I get into the new consoles, I'm going to take a step back and look at what the two big ones have done. Now, I'm not going to count Nintendo. The reason I'm not counting Nintendo is they're really not coming out with anything new right now. They did release the Wii U, but that was last year. They have nothing new to offer this year. And the Wii U came out, and it was kind of more of an accessory to the Wii than it was a whole new system. This is basically between Sony and Microsoft, because that's what's coming out this year. That's the big thing at E3. Everyone looked at the PlayStation 4. They looked at the Xbox One. And Nintendo really didn't get looked at. I'm also not going to count anything with PC gaming. PC gaming will always be more advanced than anything consoles have to offer. Consoles get new upgrades. They come out with new ones, every 8 years, 9 years. People are constantly upgrading their new PCs with new technology, better processors, more RAM. Games that are built for the PC are going to look better. They're going to run better. It's a fact. The control's better. There's no argument in it. So this is about console wars between Xbox and the PlayStation. Which, mind you, in the sense, console war is stupid. There's no reason to pledge allegiance to a company. a lot of people call people who have the Xbox a Microsoft fanboy, but I guarantee you that everyone that owns an Xbox has owned a PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2 in the past. The reason being is because those were the systems out. When I got my first PlayStation, I was originally playing Sega and Nintendo. And it's not about switching companies or picking sides, it's just about getting the new technology, getting the better product, and that's what they did. They came out and they put out a better product. Super Nintendo was great, Sega Genesis was great, PlayStation came in, and PlayStation was better. Nintendo 64 came out. Nintendo 64 was a great system in its own right, but it was never really going to compete with the PlayStation. PlayStation 2 came out, once again, another great system, but it was just kind of an upgrade from the PlayStation 1. So to call someone a fanboy doesn't really make a lot of sense because, like I said, everyone who's owned the Xbox has owned a Sony product. They've owned the PlayStation 1, they've owned the PlayStation 2. Now, kind of a little backtracking there, but anyway, I look at what the companies have done because that's how you kind of see where they're heading in the future. When I look at Sony has always been a company that kind of, at least in the gaming portion of it, I mean not with TVs and stuff like that, they've kind of seen what other companies have done and then tried to copy it and broadcast it out. They do hardware upgrades, but they don't really upgrade a lot of their infrastructure or software. They don't look at the future, they look at giving you a product that's an upgraded version of the product you already have, which again comes back to Apple. The difference between buying an iPhone 4 and an iPhone 5 is just to say, I have an iPhone 5. Of course there's some new features of it, hardware is a little bit better, but it's nothing revolutionary. It's not like when the first iPhone came out, that was revolutionary to cell phones. There was no cell phone out that was quite like that. The old Windows phones were not even remotely close. The Blackberries were not remotely close. They kind of pioneered the way, and then Android came in, and Android kind of improved on it, and they're kind of the two leaders. The Microsoft phones, while they're good, they're not as good as what Apple and Android have to offer. So I look at the PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 2, and it was basically just a hardware upgrade. The graphics got better. The controller's pretty much been the same since the beginning. I'm not going to get into controller because that's a personal preference thing. I mean, I personally like the controller for the Xbox, but once again, that's a personal preference. You can't argue what's better because it's a personal preference. It's what feels better for you. For me, the PlayStation 1 feels a little small to me, but I know people have small hands, and the Xbox One feels big to them. So to each their own. I'm not going to be the whining idiot on the internet that I've seen so many people be over this. I'm going to look at things and just be logical and unbiased. So I look at what Sony did, and after the PlayStation 2 came out, because there was no competition for it, there was literally nothing to compete with the PlayStation 2, and Sony knew this. They put out the new product, everyone loves the PlayStation 1, they buy a PlayStation 2. Everybody wants the latest and greatest, and that's kind of where the fanboyism comes in. People want to feel like they own the best thing out there, like they're a part of this great thing because I own this. The reason people buy a Ferrari isn't just because it's fast. They buy a Ferrari because they can afford a Ferrari, and they feel exclusive. They feel like they have the best thing in the world, and that's kind of how people work. So then what happened was, Microsoft came out and said, okay, we're going to make a gaming system pretty much out of the blue. And they put out the original Xbox. Now, the original Xbox was a huge push into the future of console gaming. The reason why was it was the first time that we've seen online gaming from a console, at least in a major form. Games like Counter-Strike, games like Unreal Tournament, games that I played when it came out, it really pushed into being able to play online instead of having LAN parties where you'd have to get friends together with 4 systems and 4 TVs and hook all the systems up. It was completely different. It allowed for you to play online. And then there was also the internal storage. That was the first time that we've seen an internal hard drive within a system. I know that it had blocks back then, and it had like 250,000 blocks plus. No one knew what the total was. I never even got it to actually taken away from that 250,000 plus. So I mean, the system for what it did was great. The controller was a little big and clunky, but they did come out with a controller S later on, which was actually a very good controller. It's kind of like a cross between the old one and the new one. So they kind of came out and said, we're going to push it into online gaming. We want to make it more like computers. They invented the party chat system, which is something that Sony had never done. And actually the sad part is to this day they still don't have. The PlayStation 3 does not even have a party chat system, which is a whole nother thing I'll get into later. So they went and they pushed it. Now, this is good news, and everyone from Sony should thank Microsoft for doing this, because this forced Sony to have to react and come out with new stuff. Competition between companies is where everyone wins. If there was one company that made one gaming console, it would suck. People don't realize it, but it would suck, because they know no matter what they put out, people have to buy it if they want to play video games. So we take a look at, you know, the bumps that they made in there. Sony decided to be reactive, and they came out with an attachment hard drive device. It was like $150, and this allowed you to play online, and a big one that they played online was SOCOM. I personally never played it because I didn't want to buy a $150 attachment to add to my PlayStation 2 to play online when I had an Xbox that did it already. So when you look at it, the PlayStation 3 should have came out and been able to do everything that the original Xbox did, but it didn't. They still don't have a party chat system, and that's one of the things that really kind of is odd to me. And I say this because me personally, I play a lot of, you know, course games with friends. I mean, I've had videos on YouTube, you can see them. You know, I did a drinking game where we had, you know, 8 people all playing a drinking game, playing in 2 separate games at the same time, all in one party chat system together, and recorded the whole party chat and everything. That's something that wouldn't have been possible on PlayStation because there's no party chat system. Then Nintendo came out. Nintendo said, listen, we cannot compete with what Microsoft and Sony is doing, and they knew this. So they said, we're going to make a system that gets everyone off their butts and makes them play. We're going to make a family system. Everyone knows how to use a remote control. We all use them on TVs. We're going to make it look like a, you know, a motion control thing that looks like a remote used on your TV. We're going to make it accessible to families. And people could say Microsoft this and Sony that, but Nintendo won the last console war. You look at the sales number, and Microsoft and Sony were both in the 77 millions. They pretty much tied. Nintendo blew them completely out of the water. Completely out of the water. So when you come into the next gen, you would think that the idea is they would both want to go after Nintendo's audience, because that's, you know, well over 100 million Wii's were sold, and that right there is something that can be split up between Microsoft and Sony. That's what they would want to get, but they didn't really do that, and that's gonna come in a little bit later. So Nintendo came in with their, you know, with their Wii. Sony went ahead and followed suit and said, okay, we're gonna go ahead and make the Move, which is basically another version of the Wii. Now people will complain that, oh well, it's much better than the Wii and it's more accurate. I've used it, I've seen it, I've watched kids play it. I've seen you do the same thing. You stand in one spot, you can flick your wrist and score almost perfect on, you know, most of the games they have. The accuracy is no different than what you have with a Wii. And it's also an expensive add-on. Where the Wii comes with the controllers, for this PlayStation you'd have to buy the additional camera, buy a controller for each people. You know, you have a family of 4, you're talking about buying 4 controllers, a camera. You're well over $200, $300 now. This is the price of a whole new system. This is the difference that I see between Sony and Microsoft, because Microsoft goes, okay, I see what Nintendo did. They could have done the same thing like Sony and made, you know, a motion controller. They want to step ahead and say, we're going to take away the controller and we're going to make you the controller, and that's kind of what they did with the Kinect. Now, of course, the first trial of anything is not going to be perfect. You know, everyone understands that, but it was good. It worked, still works, and now they have another version coming out on it. Sony has kind of gotten away from the Move. They really didn't market it at E3 this year. They haven't really done anything to push it because the Move was a failure. If they fail in a product, they fail in a product. Sony's not the type of company to improve on it and try to push a product. They go, okay, people didn't buy it, we're just going to kind of brush it off to the side, and, you know, it is what it is. Now, people want to say that, you know, this company betrayed me, Microsoft did this, and, you know, the whole DRM thing. It's kind of a moot point since it's all gone now. I personally didn't mind it, but it didn't affect me. I could understand people not liking it if it affected them. But like I said, moot point because it doesn't exist anymore. They went ahead and backtracked on it. People took it too personally, saying they betrayed me and Microsoft's this horrible company. Look, Microsoft does not care about you. Sony does not care about you. No company cares about you. Companies care about profits. They care about selling products and making money. That's how companies stay in business. They don't stay in business by caring about people. Alright, that's like doctors don't even care about people. Doctors heal people to make money. I mean, of course you have your few that will sit there and do it for free on the side and this and that, but they're already making a ton of money. If there was no money, if doctors made $30,000 a year, nobody would want to be a doctor. And that's just kind of the reality of life. So the point is, there is no betrayal, there's none of that. It's just two companies that are trying to push a product. Sony's doing it the same way that politicians do it. When they want to get elected, instead of talking about their strong points, they try to talk about their opponent's weak points. Now when I see that, all I see is something that doesn't have strong points. And this is going to bring me into the next generation. Now we actually get to the PlayStation 4 and the new Xbox. Now, you look at the hardware of it, and the hardware is very similar. The PlayStation 4 has slightly more powerful hardware, but the PlayStation 3 had more powerful hardware than the Xbox 360, and none of it was actually noticeable. Games didn't run any better. As a matter of fact, most of them ran worse. Graphics were not any better. The games that were multi-platform were playing the same on both systems. So when you look at the better hardware of it, it's nothing that Sony showed me in the past is going to be taken advantage of, and that comes within their operating system, which has been hard to make games for, and that's Sony's lack of experience in the software. Once again, they have better hardware because Sony is a hardware company. They manufacture laptops. These laptops run off of Microsoft's Windows system, hence software, hardware. So I look at what the Xbox has to offer, and it's going to have better software, but not better hardware. Now there's the theoretical hardware portion of it. Theoretically, and once again, might not actually be seen, or might not work as well as people think it might work, but Respawn are the ones that are making Titanfall. They're a small company, I think about 60 people, and they're making Titanfall, which is a Xbox and Windows exclusive, because it will be available on the 360 and it will be available on PC. On the Xbox version, however, they're going to use Microsoft's cloud gaming service. Now, the cloud gaming service is going to allow them to run processes off of Microsoft's server. So now you're using the power of your Xbox combined with the power of Microsoft servers, which is going to be a lot more powerful than what the PlayStation has to offer. Now, how it works, that's yet to be seen, and there's no way for anyone to know that. So as far as the hardware goes, in my eyes, they're even enough that it wouldn't make a difference. Next thing I want to look at, like I said, controllers. Not even something to discuss because that's going to be 100% personal preference. Like I said, I personally don't like the PlayStation controller. It feels small. I don't like the placement of the joysticks. It's just not for me. If you do like it, good for you. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no discussion on what's better because there is no correct answer. Now we come to the games. Once again, games, those are pretty much going to be opinion. Everyone has their games they like, PlayStation has exclusives, Xbox has exclusives, everyone's going to pick their games. It is what it is. It's another thing that, they're all going to have pretty similar. So far, Microsoft has announced more. Sony says they have more exclusives coming. People are saying, well, it's not exclusive, it's on PC too. None of that really matters, because again, I'm not going to count PC. As it stands right now, Microsoft showed me more exclusives. I don't care about what might happen in the future. From what they've showed, they have more exclusives to offer right now than Sony, and more importantly, exclusives that people want to play. I looked at the pre-order numbers, and out of the top 3 games for PlayStation, I believe the top pre-ordered games were Killzone, Battlefield 4, and Call of Duty. 2 of them, now mind you, all 3 are first-person shooters. All 3 are online games that you're going to play online against other people. Only one of them is an actual exclusive. When I look at the Xbox ones, I've seen Rise, Titanfall, and Battlefield. So Battlefield's kind of the winner either way. Everyone seems to be pre-ordering Battlefield. But 2 exclusives are being pre-ordered out of the top 3 for Microsoft, whereas there's only 1 being pre-ordered from the top 3 on PlayStation. And the other 2 are cross-platform that you can play on both systems, and Killzone is also number 3 as a first-person shooter, sorry. So it's kind of like, okay, basically they're ordering all the first-person shooters, and even that, they're ordering more Battlefield and more Call of Duty. Battlefield in its own, as a franchise, has not even hit the 5 million mark yet. Battlefield's over 50 million sold. Call of Duty is over 150 million sold. Halo is over 50 million sold. Killzone's not really established itself as a franchise for a big audience. I'm not saying it's a bad game, because again, that's personal preference. I'm just saying that it doesn't have an established audience. It's nothing that would sell a system. The people that are buying the PlayStation are playing Call of Duty and Battlefield. The people who are buying Xbox are playing Titanfall and Rise. So you have exclusives versus non-exclusives. I can play the same games that everyone's pre-ordering on the PlayStation, but the PlayStation wouldn't be able to play the same games that everyone's pre-ordering on the Xbox. To me, Titanfall and Rise look like excellent pre-order games, and there's a high chance that I'm going to wind up getting both of them when they're released. But again, games, strictly opinion. Now here's the big part, is what does the systems do? What kind of entertainment value do I get out of systems? Because this is the main thing that I look at when I'm buying, because we all know, like I said, hardware, Microsoft has its reliability issues. The 360s had a very high failure rate, while the PlayStation 3s had a very low failure rate. However, within the past couple of years, I've also seen the downtime on Microsoft be very minimal. You know, maybe it's down for 10 minutes here, 20 minutes here, on very rare occasions. You know, Sony, on the other hand, I mean, even today, they were down for like 8 hours for maintenance. They had a 24-day outage when their system got hacked, where people could not play online. You know, they had PlayStation 3s last week got bricked due to an update for the system, and Sony has not put out any fix for it. I mean, me personally, I would be very upset if I bought, you know, a $600 system, because the PlayStation 3 was $600 at launch, and I had 24-day outage because someone hacked the system and stole my credit card information. My system got bricked off an update and still have no fix on it. I've had my Xbox Red Ring twice, and mind you, this is over 6-7 years, and both times Microsoft fixed it for free, and I had it back in less than a week both times. It sucks, don't get me wrong, it sucks to be without it for, you know, a week, but overall, it's not even close to the kind of downtime that I see on the PlayStation side. So that is important too, because when you buy something, you want to be able to use it. You know, it's like buying a car and then it breaks down every week. It's not really worth having. So when I look at what the system can do and what kind of entertainment value I can get out of it, yes, the Microsoft is more expensive because it comes with the Connect feature, and there's really no option to not have the Connect feature as it stands. And I understand that people don't want to pay the extra $100 for it if they don't plan to use it. Now I look at, you know, what they could do. The PlayStation 4 is going to play games. It'll play games online. They're finally introducing a party chat system, but I'm always wary, as everyone is, about first gen. Sometimes when companies do things, you know, the first time and have a first gen software or a first gen system, it has issues. Everyone's aware of that. The party chat on Xbox will now be in its third gen, since the first Xbox and the Xbox 360 both had them. So I have a third gen party system that's not going to be any worse than what I already have on Microsoft, so I know what I'm getting. It can only get better from there, compared to PlayStation, where I don't know what I'm getting. We don't know how the party chat system will work. We don't know if it will be good, if you'll be able to hear people clearly, how many people you can have on it, if it will crash. No one knows. It's a huge unknown. Then you have, you know, both offer the streaming services, which is great. You know, both offer a lot more social features. You know, they both have, you know, Hulu and everything and all those good things, Netflix. You know, those were even in the last gens of the system. So what else is going to separate the two? What can Sony provide me with the PlayStation 4 that Microsoft can't provide me with the Xbox One? And I look at it, and the answer that I see is nothing. Maybe I'm missing something. If I am, definitely more than welcome to hear it. But there's nothing that the PlayStation 4 does that the Xbox does not do. Then I look at it on the flip side and go, okay, what does the Xbox do that the PlayStation doesn't do? And mind you, not everyone might like the features, but personally I like the voice command. I like the idea of the Kinect sitting there, and I can walk into a room and go Xbox on, and it turns on. You know, TV on, TV turns on, whatever. You know, it's a nice feature. You know, everyone's always looking for remotes. It's a pain in the butt. We all know that. So I like the voice commands. I like that I can, you know, change menus without needing a remote control, just by moving my hands over the voice commands. That if I want to watch ESPN, I say ESPN and it goes to ESPN. I like that. That's a big feature. If you don't like it, I understand. But having the HDMI pass-through is huge to allow you to plug in your cable box to it, or plug in any HDMI device and use it through the Xbox is huge. So that, to me at least, is a big advantage. Now I know people have this paranoia that, oh my god, the government's going to spy on me and this is the worst thing ever. Look, nobody wants to sit there and watch some middle-aged guy masturbate while eating Cheetos. Nobody cares. If the Kinect wants to sit there and watch me play a game, I can really care less. But the government's not spying on you, and everyone's paranoid. If they want to spy on you, they can. There's more than enough information. There's more than enough cameras around the world between your cell phones. They can record conversations, GPSs, webcams through your computer. It's just crazy. I mean, that's like saying that, the webcam on your computer is spying on you when you're using it. It's not. I mean, if you're that paranoid, put a piece of duct tape over the camera. Then it can't see anything. So I like that feature. Then I look at the fact that it actually has 3 operating systems on it. Sony has the same operating system it's been running. It's a little more bells and whistles on it. Looks very similar to what the Xbox 360 one is. And there's nothing wrong with that, but again, it comes to the fact they're chasing what Microsoft's doing. They're making the PlayStation 4 layout look like the Xbox 360 layout, which I personally don't understand why they wouldn't completely redo it, but Microsoft allows you to have 3 operating systems on this Xbox, which is going to run Windows 8, which is a great operating system. I mean, I know everyone might say, oh my god, it sucks, it's the worst thing ever. It's not. Windows 8 is a great operating system. It's just something new to learn, and people don't like learning new things. Then it also has the Xbox operating system, which has always been historically very easy to develop games for, very easy for developers to take full advantage of the system. And then it has a third one, which kind of bridges the two. Now, with the PlayStation, I've seen people playing games. I've seen them stop playing games and go and look on the internet and, watch a video on the internet and then go back to, or watch actually a share, not even the internet, and it allows you to multitask. Well, the Xbox is also going to allow you to multitask, but it also adds in the feature of having the TV, of having, let's say I'm playing a video game, and I personally do fantasy football. I love it. So I'm playing a game and I look at the the system, and I'm talking to one of my friends while I'm playing. He's like, oh, did you just see that, what happened with, in this game? I'm like, oh, alright, let me see. And I tell my Xbox, hey, switch to, NFL Network. And it switches to NFL Network, and bam, there's the highlight of it. I'm like, damn, that's a good play. That, I like that. And the fact that I don't lose part of the game, I don't have to go back to a dashboard or anything, that it just stays where I am in the game and switches over. That is a really cool feature to me. That adds entertainment value. It gives me more money for me. As it stands now, my Xbox does nothing but play games. I don't use Netflix, I don't use Hulu, I don't use Internet Explorer on it. I don't use it to play games. It's only on when it plays games. A lot of people with the PlayStation, the same thing, they use it to play games. With the new Xbox, I see it as something that I'll have on all the time to basically do everything. It's the center of an entertainment system. When I look at the PlayStation 4, I look at it as something that plays games. I still don't see it as an entertainment system. I mean, sure, you can use it as a Blu-ray player, but you can use it as a the Xbox is a Blu-ray player, and probably now if you want one, you can get one. I mean, I bought a 3D Blu-ray player for like $60. I mean, it's not that, they're not that expensive. It's not a new technology like it was when the, PlayStation 3 came out. So I look at the entertainment value I get out of it, and I get more from it there. Now, I try to see what kind of arguments that people have for the PlayStation side, because like I said, I want to be biased. But the arguments basically is that they hate Microsoft betrayed them, and the whole DRM thing left a poor taste in everyone's mouth, and what if I don't have internet and this and that. It's like, everyone has internet that's going to buy games. If somebody lives in a third world country, and mind you, I don't mean to be offensive on this, but I mean, if someone lives in a third world country where they have no internet, the last thing they're probably worried about is buying a new video game system. I understand that not everyone can afford a new video game system, not everyone can afford a PlayStation or an Xbox, and that's not going to be their priority. But don't complain about the fact that you need to have internet if you can't afford to buy a system. And the whole used game thing, it's like, well, I want to buy this game, and I want to buy that, and I want to buy them used. Look, if you want to save $5 on a used game, go for it. Everyone has their own thing. I can't remember the last time I bought a used game, because I don't want to buy a game that's 8 months old and play through it real quick. There's different types of gamers. I like playing competitively online, and I like playing co-op online. I mean, I don't like playing a lot of single player campaigns, because no matter how good one of them is, there's not a lot of replay value in it. The replay, the future of gaming, what's going to keep people playing is always going to be multiplayer, playing with your friends, playing against people. That's what keeps games fresh, it keeps them new. That's what keeps everything going. Games that are single player could be great, but they die off, like BioShock. BioShock could possibly win, Game of the Year this year. Everyone said it's a great game, but they play it, you beat it in 20 hours, and you never touch it again. Now, sure, there's some people who might go ahead and play 80 times, more power to you, but most people are not going to do that. And then there might be the people that say, okay, I want to trade it in, I'll get $30 back, and then I'll buy, another game. Well, all you're doing is just cycling through games. You're not getting any replay value out of a game. If I buy a game, I'm going to get a couple hundred hours out of it because of the multiplayer in it. Most people don't finish single-player campaigns on a lot of the big multiplayer games. Call of Duties, the Halos, the Gears of War, stuff like that. People don't finish campaigns that often on it because they play it for the multiplayer. And that's where the future of gaming is, and that's kind of what Microsoft's pushing. The online service has always been better than Sony, and Sony's kind of chasing them. Then you go into the cloud, where Sony partnered up with Gaiku, which I might be pronouncing wrong. What Gaiku is, for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure no one's ever heard of them before Sony came along, I didn't really know, I had to go ahead and research it, is they're basically a Netflix of video games. And they host games on their server and allow you to stream and play them. Cool service and all, but I don't see how it's actually going to do anything for Sony. It seems like their cloud is just storage. They don't have dedicated servers. Microsoft has over 300,000 servers. Respawn Entertainment went to Sony and went to Microsoft with Titanfall, and they said, listen, this is what we want to do. We want a solution to make a fairer competitive multiplayer balance. We don't want single player. This is a multiplayer game only, and we want to take away lag compensation. We want to take away all the advantages you get from bad internet. How can we do that? Microsoft gave them a cheap alternative, and they said that Microsoft's there to make gaming better. They're not nickel and diming them, and they're not expensive, so they can actually afford to use Microsoft services to make the game better for everyone. Sony did not have a solution for them. When you hear that from a developer, it really makes you think that where are the priorities set? Well, Sony's putting on a dog and pony show. It looks like Microsoft's actually improving the experience of gaming and improving in technology. They're making leaps. Sony's not making leaps. Instead, they're just putting out an updated version of the PlayStation with a couple of bells and whistles, and then trying to down-talk Microsoft to sell their product. The first time when people start getting negative in a conversation is when you know they have nothing positive to offer. Same thing when you argue on the internet. If you put 10 things out and say, okay, this is why I like this, and you put 10 reasons why, and someone replies back and says, you suck, it's because they have no argument. They'll argue till they're dead, but they have nothing to say other than you suck, or you're wrong, or you're an idiot. It's because they don't have anything positive to say for their side. And that's how you know that, basically you lost an argument. And when I looked at the whole thing, that's kind of what I seen from Sony. Microsoft said, okay, we do this, 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 and this, and Sony said, well, you suck. And everyone's like, yeah, they suck, woohoo. It makes no sense. I mean, I see it over time and time again, but it literally makes no sense when you step back and look at it from an unbiased perspective. So when I looked at the whole entire outcome of everything, I decided that as of now the Xbox One's better for me. Mind you, could change in the future. Maybe Sony comes out with something next few months that blows them away. I put both on pre-order because I believe that you should. The reason why you do is because there's nothing wrong with doing that. You can cancel one of them if you don't like it. If they run short, you can buy it and then resell it on eBay and make money off of it. There's so many things you can do with, you only get to do this once every 8-9 years. I think everyone should pre-order both systems. It's the smart thing to do, and then take your time and decide what you want. Instead, everyone kind of already picks sides, but when you look at the whole picture of it, I think that the Xbox One has a lot more to offer. And then we come in with the marketing strategy. This is where I was getting to back a little while ago. The marketing strategy is interesting because, well, Sony on the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and Wii in the last generation, PlayStation said we are a home entertainment center. We play Blu-ray, we play games, we play movies, we play anything you want. We want to be the center of your home entertainment system. We do Netflix, we do this. Microsoft said, we want you to play games online. This is a gaming system. We want you to play games online. The Wii said, we want you to be a family, get together, use motion control sensors, dance around, and have a good time. The Wii won. Any way you look at it, the Wii won because kids wanted a Wii. They marketed to kids, and anyone who knows, if you market to kids, you will sell a lot more because a lot of parents will buy stuff for their kids before they get stuff for themselves. So they marketed to kids, and they won because of it. The Xbox got a gaming crowd. PlayStation got a gaming crowd. They both did a lot of stuff, but in the end, the Wii won. So now in the next generation, You think, where do we want to tap into? Well, Microsoft wanted to tap into the Wii's audience, and that's what they did. They tapped into Sony's and the Wii's audience by saying, okay, here's the Kinect. This is going to be your family thing. You get them off the couch. It's a better version of the Wii. Here's your home entertainment system, because not only do we play Blu-ray now, but, you know, we do TV. We have partnerships with ESPN. You know, we have real-time tracking of your stats, and, you know, your fantasy football stuff will pop up. This is your all-in-one, you keep it running all the time, home entertainment system. Sony came in and said, we're the system for real gamers. They did that because they wanted to tap into Microsoft's audience without even thinking about the 100+ million Wii's that were sold that somebody needs to replace. So, where are those 100 million people that have Wii's? What are they going to buy? Are they going to buy the one that says, oh, we're for hardcore gamers? Or are they going to buy the one that has a Kinect for their kids so their kids can play around?